So this is Bhakti week 37. Before I start, Om Gnati Vidanyasya Jnana Jnana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadavayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavasya Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Pada Dhagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnuraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Swami Tinamni Namaste Krishna Prabhupada Siddharthani Sri Gaura Karma Shakti Bhakti Tinamni Namo Vishnuraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamni Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nile Shesha Sunyavadi Pastacharya Pracharini Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurasase Namaha Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himagaya Divachari Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, from the speaker we turn a little bit away from the spaces because it's humming a little bit. Just, yeah, like that. Either that way or you just lower the volume. But this should work, yeah. It's going to feedback, so, alright. Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna.
Oh, there's still feedback. You need to bring the master volume down. Yeah, the master volume is? Okay, yeah, every volume on that's fine. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, good. Thanks. So everybody got hand up? Yes? Okay. That's good. So week 37, Sri Namamrita, the nectar of the holy name. Okay. The Lord has innumerable names to indicate different functions and dealings. So that is a whole statement in itself. It's actually a class in itself. We're going to talk about the holy names of Sri Krishna. As it says in the next line, Krishna expands himself into many names. So the expansions each have a name depending on what he wants to do. And of course, this is all by his own sweet will. Lord Chaitanya, to two most confidential associates, Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Raya, in Chaitanya Leela, they are in male bodies, but their original form is their gopis. This is Lalita and Vishaka, in that order. Swarup Damodar is Lalita, Ramananda Raya is Vishaka. So when Lord Chaitanya came, they came with him because when Krishna comes, he comes with his associates. So Lord Chaitanya also came with his associates. Why did they come as men? When Krishna comes, he comes as gopis. Why did they come as men? Well, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. This is all pre-planned. He took sannyas, and sannyasis, the closest associates to them are men for sannyasis. That's just the way it is. So, in that, or many of the gopis in Manjaris, in Chaitanya Lila, they are in male bodies. And in Krishna Lila, they themselves, as gopis and Manjaris, female. So, Lord Chaitanya had conversations several times with Saru Damodar and Ramananda Raya, but I can't relieve this. So many things come to mind in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Saru Damodar especially knows Lord Chaitanya's mind. So based on however he's acting, based on how he's feeling, Saru Damodar knows exactly what to do. Sometimes he would sing, but what he sings, the lyrics, the words, really express Lord Chaitanya's feelings. And that makes Lord Chaitanya very, very happy. Their dealings are very, very wonderful. So this is one of them, where Lord Chaitanya is talking to both of them, as it says in the handout. My Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, in your holy name, thank you, there is all good fortune for the living entity. And therefore you have many names, such as Krishna and Govinda, by which you expand yourself. Now this is when we see Chaitanya Charitamrita Antarlila is also, this particular text 2016 is part of the Shikshastaka, the 8 shlokas that Lord Chaitanya left for us, for everybody, which really describes the feeling of a devotee and what they should be about, the mindset of a devotee in chanting, the mindset of a devotee in relating to Krishna unconditionally. So this is one of them. So to continue actually the whole text, it says, you have invested all your potencies in those names, and there are no hard and fast rules for remembering them and chanting them for that matter. My dear Lord, although you bestow such mercy upon the fallen, this is not in the handout, this is the rest of the text itself. Okay? Although you bestow such mercy upon the fallen conditioned souls by liberally teaching your holy name, I'm so unfortunate that I commit offenses while chanting the holy name, and therefore I do not achieve attachment for chanting. So that is the entire text, the translation of the text. So, Lord Chaitanya, he came, he's God, Radha Krishna combined, but he came in the mood of a devotee. So he's talking about him, how he feels towards Krishna, to express to us how we should feel towards the Supreme Lord. Just like when Krishna and Arjuna were talking before the Battle of Kurukshetra, the questions that Arjuna was asking and the answers that Krishna was giving to Arjuna was in fact for the benefit of all of us. So, Lord Chaitanya is speaking that in your holy name there is all good fortune for the living entity. You have many names, Krishna, Govinda, and then it continues in that text, you've invested all your energies in those names. So Krishna's energies are all invested in his name. So this particular yuga, the way to connect with Krishna is to chant the holy names of Krishna, as Lord Chaitanya has asked us to chant. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya is expressing that, and this is something we go through, especially since if you're not pure, you're going to go through this. Committing offenses while chanting. It's an offense not to pay attention while chanting. How many of us do throughout, even 16 rounds? Mind is so fickle, it's traveling here and there and here. But if you're not paying attention, it's already an offense. So, that's why Lord Chaitanya is saying, I commit offenses while chanting the holy name, therefore I don't have or I don't achieve attachment for chanting. Now, so you might wonder, I'll bring a question up, well, if not paying attention while chanting is an offense, then what is our situation? Because the mind just roams around so much. Now, there is mercy built in the japa also, in the chanting. there's mercy built in. When you get to the end of the last beat, the 108th round of chanting, then you say the Panchatattva mantra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Before we go to the next round, the reason it's there is to pardon us for offenses while we're chanting around offenses we commit. That's why it's there. And that's why if you listen to the CD or any other listening device where Srila Prabhupada is chanting, you never hear him say Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. He doesn't say any of that. He just keeps chanting straight through. Because he doesn't chant offensively. He doesn't. So he doesn't need to say it. That's why on his tape, we listen to it. It's not there. But for us, we definitely have to do it. Because we minds tend to go all over the place. Okay, but Srila Prabhupada is definitely a pure devotee. He's focused on Krishna. And therefore he chants that part without having to say the Panchatattva. Okay, so to come back to this. 2, Krishna is the principal name of God. So the Lord has so many names. But Krishna is the main name. And his original two-handed form is the original form also. To continue, in his prayer, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam first proposes that Lord Krishna is the primeval Lord, and that if any transcendental nomenclature for the absolute, and that if any, is that right? Yeah. Okay, transcendental nomenclature for the absolute personality of Godhead is to be accepted, it should be the name Krishna, the all-attractive. In the Padma Purana, it is also stated that of the innumerable names of God, the name of Krishna is the principal one. Krishna embodies all of the expansions of himself. Krishna is the original name, and all the other names that come from Krishna are expansions of Krishna. So he's the original. So there are sometimes who think that, and I've heard somebody actually tell me this, that they thought that Vishnu was first and then from Vishnu came Krishna. But that's not the case. That is not the case at all. Krishna is first and expands himself to Vishnu. Actually expands himself to Balaram, in the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Sankarsana, and Pradyumna. Then they expand to Narayan. And after Narayan, there's also a second Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Sankarsana, and Pradyumna. And the Sankarsana of the second one expands to Vishnu. So there's just much in between from Krishna before it gets to Vishnu. Now, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then Shirodakshaya Vishnu. So, Krishna is first, Krishna is the original. Alright, so, spiritual edification. So, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 2, continued from Srila Prabhupada. In the Vedanta Sutra 3.2.26, it is described, this is also described, I'm moving around. It's described in the following words. Prakasat cha karmani abhyasat. Devotional service is so potent that by engaging in the activities of devotional service, one becomes enlightened without a doubt. So devotional service is so potent that simply by engaging in the activities of devotional service, one becomes enlightened without a doubt. So basically what we're being told is, involve yourself in the different kinds of devotional service. And for this particular age, Kali Yuga, the yagya is the chanting of the holy name. So we chant Hare Krishna, and then we involve ourselves in all kinds of services for service to devotees and for service to the deities and service to Guru. When we do that, then we become enlightened without a doubt. Actually, it reminds me of a story, an actual incident. Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, he was visited by a scholar, person who knew quite a bit about spiritual matters, scripture, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj himself was quite a scholar. If you see some of his writings, you have to have a dictionary next to you with some of the words that he uses. It's heavy, very heavyweight. He's extremely scholarly. So this scholar thought that he'll have a high-level discussion of scholarship with him. But when he visited Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, he had some questions. And after he asked his questions, Maharaj did not answer the questions. He just said, go to the pujari room and talk to the pujaris first. And when you finish it, you can come back. At first, this scholar was hesitant to go. In fact, he was resisting going, because he knew that the pujaris are involved with service in the pujari room and then on the altar serving. And he's thinking materially. He's come to have a discussion about Shastra in a high philosophical way with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. And he figures the pujaris wouldn't know like Maharaj knows. So why should he go there? So at first he was resistant. But then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur insisted, you have to go. I said, when you finish, then you can come and we'll talk. So then he went. He went to the pujaris and he explained the situation. Then Maharaj had sent him there, that he had some questions, but Maharaj had sent it to him. And pujaris, the Krishna would arrange wonderful things. The pujaris just talked, well, we are polishing the Lord's paraphernalia, so help us, you join us, okay? And then after that, we'll see what happens. But you just join us in the meantime, this is what we're doing. So then he also took some of the paraphernalia and started cleaning, started polishing, and so on. And when he was finished, all the answers he had in his mind to his questions came to him. All the answers, his questions were all answered. He didn't have to talk to the pujaris, didn't say anything to him. But the answers came. And so after that, he got up to leave. And he didn't go back to Maharaj. He got up to actually leave. But then Maharaj saw him leaving and called him. And he said, did you go to the pujaris? He said, yes, Maharaj, and I got all my answers. So then, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj explained to him that devotion is not about being so intelligent about the shastric part of it. Devotion is from the heart. So since you had to put your scholarly attitude down and actually agree to work with the pujaris who are serving Krishna, Krishna, who knows everything, supplied your answers for you. So he got his answers and he also got a lesson about devotion service. Two things at the same time. So, where were we? Devotion service is so potent that simply by engaging in the activities of devotion service, one becomes enlightened, without a doubt. I'm going to ask that we change the format slightly. And sometimes when we read all this and get to the end, we get to the questions, sometimes we've forgotten where the answers are to the questions, right? So let's go to page 3. Page 3 is where the questions start, at the bottom. Okay, so we'll do question number 1 now. Which is the most potent way to gain enlightenment? What's the most potent way to gain enlightenment?
Devotion service.
Yeah, to be involved in devotion service. And so that was the answer. Okay. All right, now to come back where we were. Another wonderful story coming up. A practical example of this can be seen in the previous life of Narada Muni, who in that life happened to be the son of a maidservant. He had no education, nor was he born into a high family. But when his mother was engaged in serving great devotees, Narada also became engaged, and sometimes in the absence of his mother, he would serve the great devotees himself. So, he didn't have any education, he wasn't born in a high family, but he got the opportunity to associate with great devotees. So he was actually, in many ways, from a spiritual standpoint, very fortunate. Very fortunate, as we'll see later. So to continue, Narada personally says, Uchita Lepan Amo. Can we do this together? Says, okay, let's try it. Okay, let's go now. Uchishta Lepan Amodito Vijay Sakrit Sma Unje Ta Apasta Kilvisha Evam Pravishtasya Vishuddha Chetasas Tat Dharma Eva Ma Ruchi Prajayate. So this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.25, Narada describes his previous life to his disciple Vyasadeva. He says, while engaged as a boy servant for those purified devotees during the 4 months of their stay, which is Chaturmasya, he was intimately associating with them. Sometimes those sages left remnants of food on their dishes, and the boy who would wash the dishes wanted to taste the remnants. So he asked the great devotees for their permission, and when they gave it, Narada ate those remnants and consequently became freed from all sinful reactions. As he went on eating, he gradually became as pure-hearted as the sages. The great devotees relished the taste of unceasing devotional service to the Lord by hearing and chanting, and Narada gradually developed the same taste. See how powerful that is? The other scholar just went to work with pujaris. He got his answers. Narada Muni, the great Narada Muni, was in fact in the previous life a boy servant. Actually, he was with his mom. His mom was serving the sages, so he also did it. Just like our children, they watch what we do. Mom's doing that. They don't know the reason, but they continue anyway, just like that. And of course, if the parents approve, then they keep doing the same thing. So, the fortune that he had was that the sages that he was associating with were very, very enlightened, pure souls. And he just happened to be with them. That's why association is so important. If you want to grow in Krishna consciousness, you have to have some connection with somebody that can tell you more about Krishna, that behaves, not only just talks, but walks the talk, as they say. Also, that's what he says that should be done. So Guru, devotees, you need to actually watch those who take the process seriously and spend more time with them, associate more with them. Because you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to grow much more quickly that way. Now, Narada was eating the remnants. It's the boy, the food is finished, plates given to him, he has to wash it. And he looks at what's on there, not even understanding his Mahaprasad. He goes, can I eat what you have left? He said, yeah. And he starts eating it. Again, another big fortune. You taste Mahaprasad, it also helps to grow. Prasad helps. That's why we offer what we cook. Because when the Lord eats it, then, and he eats with any of the senses, can do the work of other senses. So even if he looks at it, not like us, we can look, but he can eat by looking at it, by even smelling like that. So when we go back to spiritual way, you can do the same thing. But not now. Because when your soul is actually freed from the body, it does the same thing. It can. So we take of what the Lord has eaten, then that is Mahaprasad, and if we eat it, it helps us to grow spiritually. It does its work with us. Without even us realizing, we become more and more interested in Krishna consciousness. And the more interested we get in Krishna consciousness, the less interested we get in material things. So it's like they're side by side. You take more of spiritual, you get less of material. More spiritual, less material, like that. More time you spend doing spiritual things, the less time you will have anyway to do material things. But then after a while, spiritual activities are something you get used to and then you begin to like doing. And when you like doing something, then it's really a good replacement for what you used to do before. Okay? And therefore you grow like that. So it's actually a simple process. It's only Maya that sometimes makes it difficult for us to go forward. Alright, so Narada says further, You gonna do that one too? Together? Tatan Baham Krishna Kata Pragayatam Anugrahina Srinabam, Manohara Ta Shad Me Vishmata Priya Shivacha Anga Mama Bhavat Uchi. So, by associating with the sages, Narada got the taste for hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, and he developed a great desire for devotional service. So by associating with the sages, two things. You got the taste for hearing and chanting, because they were hearing and chanting, so he was with them. And then he also developed a great desire for service, for devotional service. Therefore, as described in the Vedanta Sutra, Prakasas or Prakasas Chakamanya Vyasat, if one is engaged simply in the acts of devotional service, everything is revealed to him automatically and he can understand. This is called Pratyaksha, directly perceived. That's the story that I was talking about, the scholar, when with the pujaris and everything got revealed to him. All his answers came to him. Okay, so back to page 3, question number 2. This is understanding again, question number 1, about under understanding. Through the example of Narada, explain how we can gain spiritual enlightenment. Through the example of Narada. What did Narada do? Association, yes. And then what happened from the association?
He developed an interest.
He developed interest doing the same thing that the sages were doing. And from that came the answers. Everything was revealed to him, so he got enlightened. So, hearing and chanting, hearing the sages. Now we may not have a sage with us close, but because of the media, the different types of things now we can use to hear. We can hear somebody that's spoken in another part of the world, and through the internet we can hear him. Okay, so hearing and then chanting the glories of the Lord will give us a great desire for devotion service. So Krishna consciousness, so far what we're talking about, you can summarize and say Krishna consciousness, it works like a disease. It literally works like a disease. It's not a disease, but it works the way disease works. If you eat, Nada was eating the remnants of the sages. If you eat food from a diseased person, more than likely, especially if the disease can be carried that way, you'll come down with that disease too. And so in the same way, if you eat Mahaprasadam from pure devotees, then you will catch the disease they have. But the disease is Krishna consciousness. So it's a good disease, right? So, then the disease will slowly work, just like viruses work. You can't stop it. It has to take its course. So disease also works like the Krishna consciousness. After taking Mahaprasadam from the pure devotee, Krishna consciousness will work and slowly kill the illusions and material desires. Over time, those will be removed as long as you keep doing what you're doing and doing it with sincerity. Then the heart opens. Krishna looks at our heart, especially how we do things. You know, we don't do things perfectly, but how we do things in terms of the heart or the sincerity that goes with it. So, by doing this constantly serving the Lord, we will give up our material desires. So, in this previous life, Narada Muni served the sages. He ate their prasadam. He heard them when they were talking. He chanted with them when they were chanting. And the next life, he was born as the great Narada Muni. Very simple. So, you continue. The word Dhamyam means the path of religion. Narada was actually a son of a maidservant. He had no opportunity to go to school. He was simply assisting his mother. And fortunately, he's not educated and has never studied the Vedas. can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization. So see, in Nana Muni's case, didn't go to school, but those that he served, when his mother was serving, he did the same thing. Those were the ones who actually, well, they were charges in their own right. They had all the answers to spiritual enlightenment. And they were putting themselves, just tasting the Mahaprasad, helped him, Nada, to actually get the taste for service. And then being around them constantly at that time for 4 months straight, he also got so much hearing and so much chanting, so that he was extremely fortunate in that way, in that particular lifetime. So to continue, the process of devotional service is a very happy one. Why? Devotional service consists of the 9 processes: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smarana, and then go on. Vandanam, so on. So one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures on transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting, one can learn, and then one can eat the remnants of the food offered to God, nice, palatable dishes. In every state, devotional service is joyful. So, devotional service is saying it's a very happy one. It consists of the 9 processes, 3 of them that are listed here. So one can simply hear the chanting of glories of the Lord, and we have the chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, very nice tunes, so many different tunes that you can hear about, again, the same mantra. Or can attend philosophical lectures, like I think last Sunday, Maharaj was here,
Danvi
right? Danvi Maharaj was here. He was also in the Friday program in Harrisburg. He has written a lot of books. Last time I counted the number of books on his internet, he had 44 books then. That was what was being sold, and he's more than that. Yet, when he speaks, it's like Srila Prabhupada. He speaks and just explains very simply. Very, very simply. And that is the intelligence. Very highly educated Dr. Dane, right? He's actually, even in Kami Life, he had a PhD. He explains it very simply because there are highly intelligent people listening and there are kids also listening. So if you explain to what a person who's highly intelligent can hear, you will lose half the audience. Simply, well, it's too high for me, I don't understand what he's saying. Then they don't get interested. So this is not good. So that's about knowing that, if you listen to his lectures, they are very simple. They also, but they're very profound though. Everything he says is very profound. So if you listen over and over and over, you get so much from it. And Nanda Maharaj was speaking pretty much the same way. Slowly. And he was a little tired at first, I remember. But later on in the kirtan, he perked up because he started singing, it was wonderful. But that is, so even Narada, at that age, with the sages, he still could understand that. He was 5 years old. You can't speak very high philosophy to a 5-year-old. So every time they explain in such a way that everybody in the house, intelligent or a kid, can pick it up. So, question number 2 on page 3. Question number 2 on page 3. How is devotional service joyful to perform? How is devotional service joyful to perform? Or you can answer why it is also, because it's pretty much the same thing. You ready? Okay. So what we talked about is devotional service. The process is a very happy one. Devotional service consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, yes. And one can simply hear and chant and attend lectures and then have prasadam after that. So that's all joyful. There's not much labor in any of that.
It's dancing, singing, and food.
Dancing, singing, and feasting.
That's what we do in the party.
Absolutely. Come join us. Actually, yeah, regular parties like that too, right? Dancing, we don't hear lectures though.
It's a gossip.
Dancing and feasting. Dancing and feasting. Imagine doing dancing and feasting rather than for a party for mundane reasons. Do that for Krishna. And then what we eat is also the remnants of Krishna that purifies. So that's definitely, any way you look at it, it's a very wonderful process. It's an easy one, it's a joyful one on top of that. Yeah. So that's what the Prabhupada is asking us to do. Alright, so in every state, devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram Puspam Palam Toyam. He's ready to accept from any devotee, any kind of offering. Never mind what. Even a leaf, flower, a bit of fruit, or little water, which are all available in every part of the world, can be offered by any person, regardless of social position, and will be accepted if offered with love. So that is the key. You offer with love. And there are many instances in history, simply by tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of Lord, great sages like Sanat Kumar, who was one of the 4 Kumaras, became great devotees. Therefore, the devotional process is very nice and it can be executed in a happy mood. God accepts only the love with which things are offered to Him. The Lord is the owner of all there is, material and spiritual. There isn't anything that is with us or by us or from us to give to Him. Everything is already owned by Him. Therefore, the only thing we can give is what He doesn't push us to give, and that is our love. If we are willing to give our love, then there's the exchange. So then if you take any material thing and then offer to your guru, who then spiritualizes it and it goes on to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and to Sri Krishna, it is spiritualized. If you do it with love, we stand to gain because the Lord loves us back. As He said, as we surrender, to the extent that we surrender, He rewards accordingly. When we surrender, then we want to do what He wants us to do. We want to do that, because we are agreeing to do that. That is the process of surrender. To the extent that we surrender, He rewards accordingly. And if we don't, then we are with the material energy, and the material energy tends to beat us up, because there's so many difficulties the material energy presents us. But the Lord guides us through all of that if we surrender to Him. So let's continue. It is said here that this devotional service eternally exists. It is not as the Mayavad philosophers claim, although they sometimes take to so-called devotional service. Their idea is that as long as they are not liberated, they will continue with the devotional service. But at the end, when they become liberated, then they will become one with God. And in fact, what they think is that they become like God. When they get to the end, according to what their philosophy is, they become Narayan. And they refer to themselves as Narayan. They call themselves Narayan. And there was one sannyasi that made a big joke out of that, we didn't argue. I go Narayan, how are you Narayan? They call themselves that way. Of course, Lord Chaitanya refuted it immediately. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, how can you be a servant and call yourself God? And you don't own anything anyway. So you're not at God's level. So that's why Sri Prabhupada was very hard on Mayavad philosophers. Very, very, very hard on them. That was His mercy, even though they didn't understand it that way. He called them rascals. So many times He called them rascals. And they didn't like it at all, but He didn't back off. He says, what you believe in certainly doesn't work. You become liberated and you become one with God. If you're not liberated, then you're still doing devotion service. Devotion service so that you can get to the same level of God. Okay. Hopefully we'll forget this. We're not Mayavadis. Such temporary time-serving devotional service is not accepted as pure devotional service. Actual devotional service continues even after liberation. When the devotee goes to the spiritual planet in the kingdom of God, he is also engaged there in serving the Supreme Lord. He does not try to become one with the Supreme Lord. Page number 4. question number 3. Question number 3, page number 4. How is devotional service to the Lord eternal? How is it eternal?
We do devotional service here and then we keep on continuing in the spiritual world
In the
also.
spiritual, that's what it says. It doesn't stop. You continue there also. So, the mindset by which we do devotional service here should be the same mindset back home. The paraphernalia which you're going to use to do devotional service, now here is jail, there is real homes. Obviously we have much more available to do. And it's also served, the service is done among everyone who's loving towards you. Okay? Not everyone that's trying to purify and be better and have to deal with different changes, different attitudes and so on. But that is all very pure because all of them are there are pure. So this is practice here. Serving like this, practice of giving our heart in service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then when we go back, it's just natural because that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's very happy to be doing that. The Lord, the more service that we're involved in, the happier we become. Here as well as the spiritual world. Here as well as the spiritual world. So it's really, Krishna doesn't push us. What we want to do, the extent we want to do, Krishna just accepts it. Patram puspam palam toyam, you offer fruit, you offer water, you offer leaf, you offer flower, tulsi leaf and flower, he will accept it. Which means he's put it, the entire system of service has been made joyful and very simple. The chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, one of the kids at IOU started chanting. I remember we were all surprised. He was 2 years old. 2 years old. Anand Prabhu's son. First time I heard him, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama. 2 years old he was chanting. He was. Right? It was wonderful. So it's made for everyone. And it's made simple also. And joyful. Okay. So, to continue, as will be seen in Bhagavad Gita, actual devotional service begins after liberation. When one is liberated, after one is liberated, when one is situated in the Brahman position, Brahmabhuta, one's devotional service begins. Sama sarvesu bhuteshu mat bhaktim labhate param. No one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by executing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Astanga Yoga, or any other yoga independently. By these yogic methods, one may make a little progress towards Bhakti Yoga, but without coming to the stage of devotional service, one cannot understand what is the Personality of Godhead. So the beginning of this paragraph says, actual devotional service begins after liberation. When one is liberated, then one's devotional service can begin. So then are we doing devotional service? It's a question. Are we liberated? Srila Prabhupada defines liberation like this. If one is chanting the name of Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra, and obeying all 4 regulative principles, that person is liberated. That was the definition. So chant and stick with the 4 regulative principles in obedience to them. And you're liberated. See, we think liberated in terms of going back to Godhead. But when one does that, see, the Prabhupada says, when we chant and obey regulative principles, then he literally told his disciples, you're guaranteed that after this body you go back to Godhead. So, basically all it is, the liberated person is, even though they may be in the material world now, the only thing that stands between them and the spiritual world is time. The only time that stands between them is spiritual. But as far as liberation, they are already liberated. It is taken that way by the transcendental system. So it is not difficult to get liberated. It is maybe a little difficult to stay liberated because Maya is going to fight you to try to make you do material things. But this is the process. Chanting the prescribed rounds and then obeying the regulative principles puts us on a liberated platform. So yes, it can be done definitely while we're here. Alright, so We'll continue in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is also confirmed that when one becomes purified by executing the process of devotional service, especially by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from realized souls, then he can understand the science of Krishna or the science of God. So it's been made very simple. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from realized souls. See, the Prabhupada is a realized soul. You hear from him? You hear from his devotees who just basically repeat what he says. Okay. And you can hear Srimad Bhagavatam, you can hear Bhagavad Gita. So that is the process of purification. The mind, because we mentioned that liberation is doing the chanting and also the regulative principles, taking to all four of them. And see, Radha Maharaj will say, strictly. It's good to play, and I play it at the back of my mind all the time. When anything comes, the Maya, to divert me from something, I'm going, regulative principles, strictly. I keep saying strictly helps me, it's pushing on my mind, strictly. And then of course, one of the 9 processes is praying also. You find ourselves being tempted so much, then you should start praying, immediately. Start praying. Because Maya is strong. And she's strong for a reason. It really tests. So you start praying, and then this discussion about regulative principles should be made among couples too. It's very, very, very helpful, because marriage is to help both partners to grow in Krishna consciousness. Very important to have this. Be open among everything else that you discuss. Definitely discuss this, and you can talk about your own weaknesses and what to do and how to help each other to grow. All right, so the Sanskrit, Evam Prasana Manaso Bhagavat Bhakti Yogata. When one's heart is cleared of all nonsense, which is the material stuff, the Prabhupada calls it like that, then one can understand what God is. Thus, the process of devotional service of Krishna consciousness is the king of all education and the king of all confidential knowledge. It is the purest form of religion, and it can be executed joyfully without difficulty. Therefore, one should adopt it. One should adopt it. All right, so we've pretty much gone through all the answers except all the questions, and except question 4. So let's do question 4. Why is performing devotional service so pure? Why is it, or you can say, why is it purifying? Either way. That's not too far from where we started. Where it starts in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's also confirmed that when one becomes purified. So they don't really ask a question about devotion service being so pure. It just says, I think that it should be, why is it purifying? Because that's what's in there. In the Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed that one becomes purified by executing the process of devotion service, especially by hearing Bhagavatam or hearing Bhagavad Gita from realized souls, then he can understand the science of Krishna, or the science of God. Okay. Now, this is the application part. Question 1, which aspect or aspects of devotional service do you enjoy doing the most? Let's deal with that first. Which aspects of devotional service do you enjoy doing the most? We already said the process is quite joyful, so there should be plenty of agreement on the answers. Do anyone can start?
Shravanam.
Shravanam, okay. Which is?
Katha.
Hearing,
Katha, chanting.
Katha, yeah. He's a good devotee, so he likes to. I like Prashadam, but he likes to hear. Kirtanam, the party. Yes.
Doing the aarti.
Feasting.
In the arti, okay.
Feasting, somebody said.
Meditation.
Feast.
Say again?
Feasting.
Feasting. Yeah, you and me on the same team. Preparing it. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. See? And you're making the point that Krishna consciousness is joyful to do. Everybody is very light-hearted who's trying to answer this question. That's exactly the point to being made here. It's a joyful thing to do. Okay.
Giving to God also. Giving
Yes.
prasadam to God.
Yes, offering the bhoga.
Offering.
Yes, offering bhoga. Anything else?
Participating. Serving.
Serving. Wonderful. Yeah.
Cleaning.
More?
Cleaning.
Cleaning. Wonderful. Cleaning. You will join the gopis in the spiritual world. The spiritual world is clean. It's clean. But the gopis like to dust the walls anyway, just to do it. So many jewels on the walls. It's extremely wealthy place. And the wealth is all around. There's no money, you don't need money. Nobody tries to make money in the spiritual world. Krishna has everything provided. And all your wishes. You know, it's extremely bright. There's effulgence. You don't need the sun, the earth turns away from the sun and it's dark. That doesn't happen there. Everything is bright. It's lit up. The grass are lit up. The flowers are lit up. It's wonderful. It's a very wonderful place. It looks like here with more light and better. As one, Chandrasekhar Swami was here, right? One time back, he says, you don't need a lawnmower. You don't need more than lawn. Everything is set. If it's going to be high, if it's going to be low, it's still very colorful. It's very beautiful. Yeah. You wonder why we left, huh?
Is it cold there?
Big mistake.
No.
Yeah. So, all right, the other part of the question is, do you find any difficulty in rendering any part of devotional service? I do. I'll start you off because you might be a little bit shy to talk about it. Because my mind roams when I'm chanting. That's one of the biggest difficulties devotees face. Now, how do you deal with that? Well, Srila Prabhupada said that the more we engage our senses, the more the senses are controlled. So if we're chanting and we're looking at something that reminds us of Krishna, right, or hearing what reminds us of Krishna, then you see our senses are captured. If we're chanting and we chant quietly to ourselves, our minds can roam more. If we chant loud enough so we can hear Krishna's name, then the mind is trying to roam, but the mouth says Krishna, then the ear gets Krishna. Oh, okay, we'll just come back, you know, like that. So it's one body of Srila Prabhupada is saying, never ever let the mantra be the background music. Background music. In other words, you need to chant and have not the subconscious going on with the chanting because you know what it is, very simple. But then the mind is going somewhere else. After all of this, we've been told, still the mind can roam. Because that's what it's been doing for lifetime after lifetime. So Srila Prabhupada says, just bringing the mind back to the holy name. That's the effort. We do that. We do that and do that and do that and do that. Gradually, we're going to bring the mind back more than it's traveling. So if we hear the mantra from maybe a listening device, a playing device, Prabhupada chanting, hear that, and turn it, not so loud, but you definitely should be able to hear it. And then your own chanting along with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's chanting purifies. This is beautiful chanting, it purifies the atmosphere. And your own chanting, and maybe chanting in front of the deity, or writing the Hare Krishna mantra on a piece of paper and looking at it, or Srila Prabhupada even said if you're on the beach, which many of us don't go, right? But even if you're on the beach, or where there is sand, you can in fact draw, as good as you are in art, a picture of Radha and Krishna in the sand. So you can just, because your mind will go on it and look at it and chant. So the more we engage our senses, the much less likely we are that our minds will roam around, and we can tend better that way. Okay, preaching is the essence. Should we go on? It's after 12. Go
It's
on.
okay, we can go on.
Okay. Devotee preachers are engaged in the highest welfare work, without a doubt. Devotee preachers, turning people's minds back to Krishna so that we can leave this jail that we are. People think that they can make things work here, but it doesn't. The self-effulgent Vaikuntha planets, by whose illumination alone all the illuminating planets within the material world give off reflected light, cannot be reached by those who are not merciful to other living entities. Only persons who constantly engage in welfare activities for other living entities can reach the Vaikuntha planets. So we should chant. We say, well, if you help somebody, yes. If you chant, all the living entities within earshot of what you're saying, they all benefit. Even the trees benefit. They all benefit. So if we chant out a little loud, then whatever is closest to you hears, and then they actually benefit that way. It helps their spiritual account, literally, even though they're in different bodies. They can't chant, so you do a great work to them by chanting yourself to the hearing. From this material world, people can be transferred. So when a rich person gives for a particular organization that does welfare work only at the material level, nothing spiritual in it, then the people who benefit from it, they may be grateful that they got that, but they still, in their material bodies, it doesn't give them any spiritual, it doesn't add to their spiritual bank account, therefore they don't get to leave the material world. And then, it's worse than that actually, and that is, every person is destined to have a certain amount of happiness and a certain amount of distress. That is the way it is in the material world. So when someone receives from a philanthropist, right, someone receives something that's nice, well, you say that they have gotten some, in a sense, and it comes in the category of happiness, something good. But the transcendental system always arranges that if you're supposed to get 40% happiness and 60% distress, it doesn't matter how many people give you things, you will still get 40-60. Because it will be arranged that your benefit now, another time you're going to suffer so that it balances out. So a philanthropy doesn't really give you, in effect, anything. But they don't know, because they are giving, right? But the transcendental system checks it in such a way that whatever amount, percentage of happiness, percentage of distress, at the end of your life, it's going to get happening. Can't change it. So it's really prison life. Very, very much prison life. It's set up that way. The only thing that takes you out is the Yuga Dharma at the time. And now we're in Kali Yuga. So the chanting and the serving, according to what we've been directed to do, that takes us out. Because that's on a totally different account. Spiritual account. That's not a material one, it's a spiritual account. And that, after we go through whatever we go through, then we get elevated and out of this mess that we're in now. Trying to make it better, but it doesn't really work. Okay, okay, if they engage. So from this material world, people can be transferred to the Vaikuntha Loka if they incessantly engage in welfare activities for all living entities. Such incessant welfare activities can really be performed only in Krishna consciousness. There is no other philanthropic work within this material world but Krishna consciousness, which can engage a person 24 hours a day. See, that's the best type of philanthropy work, to give Krishna consciousness out. A Krishna conscious person is always engaged in planning how to take all the suffering humanity back home, back to Godhead. So every program that we do, it actually helps for everybody to be elevated. In the highest sense, in the universes, everything is connected to everything else. So everything that you do in Krishna consciousness sends ripples across the whole universe. So it's actually quite potent to be involved in Krishna consciousness. Chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It purifies the atmosphere and therefore people benefit from it. So, even if one is not successful in reclaiming all the fallen souls back to Godhead, still, because he's Krishna conscious, his path to Vaikuntha Loka is open. He personally becomes qualified to enter the Vaikuntha Lokas, and if anyone follows such a devotee, he also enters the Vaikuntha Loka. Others who engage in envious of one another, Gyanis, are not as sinful as Kamis, but they do not try to reclaim others back to Godhead. Gyanis are into knowledge rather than, helping others. Kamis, well, they want for themselves. They perform austerities for their own liberation. Yogis are also engaged in self-aggrandizement by trying to attain mystic powers. Devotees, Vaishnavas, they are the ones, the servants of the Lord. They come forward in the actual field of work in Krishna consciousness to reclaim fallen souls. The Lord says there's no one dearer to him than those who preach the gospel of Bhagavad Gita to the world. So, we should not think that life is for making money only, growing a nice family only, having a prestigious position only, because this is all material, and at death, it's all taken away. So everything that we do, we should connect it, even if it's material, connect it. So you're raising your children, involve them in Krishna consciousness while raising your children. You're making money, good. Send part of it for Krishna conscious projects. They have a prestigious position, good. Influence the others who are in Maya, in the prestigious position around you. Influence them to the extent that you can, or the extent that they're willing to hear. So, illusion. It's material illusion. All of these things we do just for material reasons. But for Grihastas, most of us are married, we're in the Grihasta ashram now. How do we avoid illusion? We should associate with those who put the aim of life, which is service to Krishna, in the forefront of everything they do. They should be your closest friends. And we should approach saintly people also for spiritual blessings. Not for material, for spiritual blessings. That's very important. Lord Chaitanya always blessed people by saying, may you always remember Krishna. If you remember Krishna at the time of death, you will go to Krishna. And the husband should see the wife as a gift from God, with the goal of assisting in service to Krishna. The wife should see the same way, as a gift from God, and is helping in what he does in order to move forward in Krishna consciousness. Okay? And real chastity is the last thing we leave with. Real chastity is we are always and only for the Supreme Lord. Whatever we do, in the back of our mind, that is the way it should be. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Right, I went a little longer than I normally do. But do you have any questions yourselves?
Just one point that helped me in understanding it better. You mentioned that God reciprocates as per our level of surrenderance to Him.
Yes.
So that was very beautiful, because we also mentioned that if we don't surrender, then Maya or material energy takes over,
Yes.
it rules over.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think that why we are getting so much trouble instead of doing all the prayers and everything, but we are actually not surrendering, from heart. And then we think that God is cruel, or He is kind of good or bad. But that's not true. So that helped me in understanding it better, that you have to first surrender. Then only you can expect better results.
Surrendering is surrendering to the process. Krishna has described the process in Bhagavad Gita. It's described in more detail in Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we do, and of course it's broken down simply, you hear the Supreme Personality of Godhead, pastimes, hear instructions, you chant the holy name, and then we do what? We give prasadam. We do the wonderful part of it also. So, that, if we're willing to do that, so it says, if you're, the whole Bhagavad Gita, when Sri Krishna described different parts of the soul, who he is, and the field of activity, and so on. And at the very end, he told Arjuna, so I've told you all of this. Do as you like. He never imposed it. Arjuna has to say, yes, I have heard, I'm going to go by what you say. So Krishna never pushes us. We have to be willing to do or not do. And if we don't do, then we're in darkness. And if we do, then we're in the light. So light is all pervading. Darkness is also all pervading. They're side by side. As soon as we get away from Krishna consciousness, we're in Maya. As soon as we get away from Maya, we're in Krishna consciousness. So that's why we're marginal. We can go this way or that way. And the choice is up to us. Krishna never imposes. You can't impose love on people. You have to let them want to love. So Krishna never imposes. That's why we have this minute free will. And then we do as we like. But it's clear. He himself came with Lord Chaitanya to teach. And others who are devotees, they're also saying the same thing. If you stay Krishna consciousness, that's where your real happiness is going to be. That's where it's going to be. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we can stop here then. Thank you for tolerating me. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Go in the corner.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Shiva Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Krishna, Jai Sanya Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Radhe Radhe, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Govinda,
Radhe Radhe, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Govinda.
Radhe Radhe, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey! Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita. Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Jaya Jaya Sita Ram. Sita Ram, Sita Ram. Jaya Jaya Sita Ram, Sita सीताराम जय जय सीताराम जया किशोर किशोरी जया किशोर किशोरी किशोर किशोरी जया किशोर किशोरी जया किशोर किशोरी जया किशोर किशोरी किशोर किशोरी जया किशोर किशोरी
Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shiva Prabhupada ki Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Parivasika Astottara Sata Sisi Maharaj Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Brahmacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Iskam Pavanacharya Shri Prabhupada ki Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Srivasari Go Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Gir Govardhan ki Vrindavan Dham ki Mathura Dham ki Navadvip Dham ki Jagannathpuri Dham ki Ganga Mai ki Jamuna Mai ki Tulsi Devi ki Bhakti Devi ki Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki Vaishnav Thakur ki Samavera Bhakta Vrindi ki Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Govind, you want to do? Govind. Govind. Govind.
I tried today.
Yeah, we will always support you, okay?
Actually, you want to sing with him?
Subrat, just help me.
Go and sing with him. Go and sing with Arjun with that.
Okay, start.
Good. Promise? Prasade Govinde, Prasade Govinde, Namo Rame
You want to do a class?
Quindi, buona